How long does it take to get payback on a solar and battery installation? This is our house. 1 year ago, we had solar panels and a battery installed. So we've got 30 solar panels on the roof, that's east-west facing. That's a total of 13.5 kilowatts. And then we've got 2 alpha batteries, and that's 20 kilowatt hours in total. It was installed by Heatable, and I've made videos every single month about how it's gone so far. This is me at the beginning talking about my plans. Just not sustainable, spending so much on bills. Have I aged really badly, or is it just my imagination? I think I need to moisturise. The whole system is worth a quite scary £18,990, although it was less for us as we were very fortunate to get a discount in exchange for making videos, which you'd already know about if you've been following along all this time. So, what's the payback on that massive investment? I'll tell you after the logo. I'm going to buck the trend a little bit on YouTube videos and actually tell you the numbers before I get into all the details. We've been charged £2,530 for electricity in the 12 months we've had the solar panels and battery. We have been paid £1,015 for exporting power back to the grid, and we've saved £2,969 from using the solar panels and the batteries. So we've saved / earned a total of £2,983. That means the payback time will be 6.4 years based on the original system cost of £18,990. If you've not already seen the installation video, then I recommend you see that because it's really interesting seeing how they all do it. It's a lot of work. Also, I didn't appreciate this until I got some EcoFlow panels here. These panels are so heavy. There was a guy lifting it on his own. I don't know how he did it.
They can be a bit awkward. You have to kind of stretch over to like screw in and stuff like that. But to be honest, they're pretty straightforward. You just have to have some sort of a bit of strength.
It's an amazing amount of work putting all of these on, doing all of the rails and everything, and then of course the wiring in the attic down to the inverters and batteries on the side. We tend to have pretty bad luck with getting anyone to do work on the house, but Heatable have been fantastic throughout the whole process. If you want something similar on the roof of your house, then do use the referral codes on screen to get £150 off a solar install or £75 off a battery install. As I said, the payback is 6.4 years, but this will actually improve if energy bills increase. So it does seem like a really good investment to me because you're shielded to a degree from energy price spikes, and you add value to the house, and it's something that's only going to get more attractive to new buyers as time goes on. As I've said before, £19,000 is a lot of money to spend on your house, but at least it starts paying you back immediately, unlike a kitchen, for instance, and nobody ever complains about the payback on a kitchen. Every home in the UK has to be sold with an EPC, and now we have cavity wall insulation, we've got better windows, and the solar battery setup. So I'm looking forward to seeing what rating the house has now, although I'm going to wait and get that done after we get a heat pump, if we get a heat pump. Fingers crossed. So it's important to say that the largest use of energy for this house, in fact, surely any house, is the heating. And here we have these lovely electric radiators. These are very expensive to run, so bear that in mind when you see my numbers. If we were to get rid of these and we got a heat pump instead, we'd save a fortune in bills because heat pumps are anything to 300 to 400% more efficient than these. And that is actually true because we had a heat pump at the previous house that was an air-to-air heat pump, which is air conditioning, and it was incredibly cheap. And just bear in mind that obviously if you're running all of your heating, in fact the whole house, on electricity, then if you do have solar panels and a battery, then it just makes so much sense, which is why so many people have heat pumps and they have solar and battery. So what else do we have? We also have a water tank with an immersion that we heat at the cheap rate every night, although sometimes we have to heat that in the daytime if my daughter has one of her massive showers. And if she does that on a day with no solar, that's painful. So a quick recap on how we use the system. It's fairly simple really. We just charge the batteries every night at the cheap rate, and then we use that cheap electricity throughout the day. When the solar panels are generating, that energy goes into the batteries and it's used by the house. So any excess gets exported back to the grid at 12 pence per kilowatt hour at the moment, although it was 15 pence per kilowatt hour. So other big draws of electricity, we've obviously got EVs, which we only charge overnight or during the day if it's windy. So we just plug in and Intelligent Octopus Go does the rest, telling the Zappy when to charge up. And that electricity is then charged at the off-peak rate, even during the day, even for the whole house, not just the car. The system is set up in such a way that if we plug the car in, it doesn't deplete the battery. So only the house can deplete the battery. This makes more sense because the EV we can charge overnight at cheap rates, but we don't have the same luxury with the house. We want the house to use the cheap electricity in the battery. So they're separate. You can do that. It's something that the installer has to do. I don't know the technicalities, but that's something they can do. The Zappy was installed on the 29th of April last year, so I don't actually have a full year to compare, but it's near enough. We charged 2,877 kilowatt hours over the period. That would have all been at the cheap rate of 7 pence per kilowatt hour. So that's £201 for charging the car. So that's charging the e-Niro, the i3, and whatever other press cars we have at the time. So based on an average efficiency of 4 miles per kilowatt hour, which is about right, really, for the e-Niro and the i3, that's about 11,500 miles driven over the year. The prices we pay for electricity at the moment will go up thanks to the Iran war. So if you haven't fixed your prices yet, perhaps do that. And if you're not already with Octopus, this is the point where I show you the referral code on screen. Let's talk about April then, because every month I make a video to go through the numbers. So let's add the first 8 days of April to the spreadsheet. First 8 days of April, because then that makes it exactly 12 months of having the system installed. Now, annoyingly, I was mucking around with some settings and I managed to screw up the generation for April. And I don't know whether it was an issue with the alpha system or me not understanding things, which is always possible, but we had some really sunny days and yet generated and exported very little. What was wrong? I'll tell you later for anyone that cares and wants to watch that far in the video. So in April, we spent £49.02 on energy. We exported £4.64, so that gives us a total cost of £44.38 for the first 8 days of April. If we add all that together, we end up with a cost of £2,531. So that's how much energy we've used. But we exported £1,015. So that gives us a net loss of £1,516 for the year we've had the system. But you said payback was under 6.5 years, Andrew. So we have to dig into the numbers a little bit to work out the payback because Alpha doesn't do it for us properly. Since we have a parallel system from Alpha, that means we've got 2 inverters and 2 batteries linked together in parallel. It treats it as one system. There's a quirk that makes the app tell me that we've actually earned more than we actually have. A fix is imminent, although it's been imminent for months and months. I think the fix has been released in Australia, but not yet in England. So anyway, I'm waiting. So to come to the payback figure, it's involved a lot of spreadsheeting. So bear that in mind. I think it's all correct. I'm like 90% positive I've done everything correctly, but if there are any errors, I will correct them in a future episode. As I said, the cost is £2,531 for the year. So that's how much we've been charged by Octopus for the energy use. That's based on filling up the batteries with cheap electricity every night and then using it throughout the day. In winter, that doesn't last long, thanks to the electric radiators. When the house is using the energy in the battery from overnight, it's 5.2 pence per kilowatt hour instead of 27.96 pence per kilowatt hour. Those prices changed on April the 1st. They were 7 pence off peak and 29.63 pence peak rate up until April 1st. That means we're saving 22.76 pence by using the battery, because you take the peak rate minus the cheap rate, and then that gives you your figure that we're saving. But we also have solar, of course. If the house uses the solar power directly, or that solar power that's gone into the battery is then used, then we're saving the full 27.96 pence per kilowatt hour. You could say it's free energy. Of course, you might also argue that it's not free because we have the system cost, right? But for the purposes of calculating the payback, it's free. So if we didn't have the solar panels and batteries, how much would we have spent? We saved £1,015 from using the solar energy and £954 from the energy stored in the battery. So we would have paid £1,969 more in the year if we didn't have the system. If we add that to the energy cost, it means that our energy bill in the year would have been £4,500. Pretty shocking, isn't it? If we didn't have the system, we'd also have lost out on the £1,015 export, of course. So our savings are £2,983. So you take the system value of 18,990, you divide it by 2,983, and that gives a payback of 6.4 years. I'm terrible at maths, always have been. Why am I a web developer? It's not the worst job for me, isn't it? Surely. A small caveat is that those numbers include things like using the washing machine or dishwasher in the daytime from the solar, when perhaps without the system we would be more likely to do that overnight at a cheap rate. So bear that in mind. When I say about how much we would have spent if we didn't have the system, it's not perfect. So what went wrong at the beginning of April? I said there was an issue, didn't I? So I was looking at the Octopus app and I noticed a surprising amount of peak rate electricity each day. And I was thinking, why am I getting energy from the grid when the battery is almost full or there's solar? And it turns out it's the radiator's fault. Surprise, surprise. Well, I think it's the radiator's fault. So the radiators draw a lot of energy throughout the day and they do it in spikes. So they come on quite a lot and then they'll come off just after that. So they kind of do that all the way through the day just to top up the heat really. And the battery inverter doesn't react fast enough to power it. So it takes a little bit of grid power to cover the surge, even if there's plenty of solar or battery to use. At least I think that's what's going on. But it's enough to cost about £2 a day on some days, which is a bit painful. I've been told about the term grid inertia. I hadn't previously heard of that, and that may also be playing a role. And there's a video about that by EVM. Watch that if you're interested. It's where he talks about it in relation to give energy systems. A friend told me that by forcing a small amount of export all day on the Alpha app may help mitigate it, but unfortunately in our case it didn't help. In fact, it killed generation substantially, and I've no idea why. And annoyingly, I didn't notice until we were back from Italy, so we lost weeks of generation and decent export, which is a bit painful. So I'm not going to do that again. I know we're very fortunate to be in a position to do all this, and as I've said on previous videos, Heatable did give us a big discount in exchange for filming the process over all these months, which made it even more of a no-brainer for us to do it in the first place. However, even if that wasn't the case, it's clear looking at the figures that a saving of almost £3,000 in 1 year is pretty amazing. Heatable's initial proposal said that the payback would be 7 to 8 years, so it's great to see that we're doing even better than expected. Obviously it's a massive chunk of money, and Heatable do offer interest-free credit, so you could consider that, but I would just recommend you get in there quickly and get a quote. I have heard that solar and battery prices are rising due to demand. Also, bear in mind that there's currently 0% VAT on solar and battery installations, which ends in March 2027. In our case, I'm absolutely thrilled with it all. It's made such an enormous dent in our bills, and it will just get better, obviously, as time goes on. If more of us had solar panels and batteries on our houses, we wouldn't have to import as much gas from halfway around the world, and the crazy decisions of foreign leaders wouldn't affect us quite so much. So what's next? I still want to get rid of these electric radiators, so that's the next job. And why did I get solar battery before a heat pump? I'll go into that in more detail on another episode, because I know that's probably the comment that I get more often than anything else. If you have any questions, let me know. And if you also have a solar and battery system, then tell me how it's performed for you in the last year. And if you've used Heatable, this is really important, if you've used Heatable, please write. Who's that? If you've used Heatable, please write your honest experiences in the comments as well, so I don't sound like a complete shill. You're going to knock over the camera, aren't you? Anyway, please press the subscribe button and the bell icon to be notified of other videos. And Cioccolino and I will be back in a video very soon, including the road trip from Italy, because we went in the Smart 5, we went with Cioccolino, and I came back on my own with him. So I'm editing that video now. 100 hours of footage to go through, so it'll be ready at some point next year, probably. Anyway, thank you very much, and bye for now. Cioccolino. Ciao.